A special guest joining us in studio. We are thrilled to talk to him. It is Zach Kerr.
What's going on?
Zach, thank you for taking a couple minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
What has your offseason been like since week 17?
It's been kind of mellow, running around a little bit, doing some mild workouts just to keep the body in shape, stay moving and stuff like that. But for the most part, nothing too crazy.
Now, Vic Fangio is a new coach. You're going to be a free agent.
Yes, I am.
You're going to be a unrestricted free agent. First time in your career?
Second time.
Second time.
Yep.
Well, you were a restricted free agent, weren't you?
I was undrafted, so I signed a 3-year deal coming up.
Okay, there we go. So second time in your career, unrestricted free agent.
Yep.
New coach in town.
Yep.
What do you think about the hire of Vic Fangio, and do you think you would be a good fit in his defense?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was a wonderful hire by Elway and Mr. Ellis. Obviously, those guys definitely they do their background checks and they do their due diligence to get the right guy who they feel is the right guy in the building in the head coach position. So obviously I think it's a good hire. His defense has been phenomenal since he's been in the NFL. I mean, you look at what he did with the Chicago Bears. Obviously adding Khalil Mack helped a bunch, you know what I'm saying?
That'll help anybody.
That'll help anybody, right? But it speaks for itself, the numbers and the way those guys played, and you can tell that it's not just talented players. They bought into what he was coaching. So I'm excited to see where this train leads.
Zach Kerr joining us in studio mentioned that you're an unrestricted free agent.
Yes.
Is this a tense period for you? Is this an anxiety filled period, or is it more excitement?
I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of like all three of those things, to be honest with you. Right now, you don't want to get too anxious or too tensed up, but you're kind of like, right now I'm more excited because I'm like, okay, let's see what if the Broncos do try to retain me, or that only helps if the team that you just got finished playing for still wants you. That'll help you a lot of free agency. But right now I'm just kind of excited to see where it goes, and as it get closer to the combine, I kind of start to get a little anxious, and I'm like, okay, because you don't know who's a free agent right now. You don't know who's in the NFL that's already a free agent as a defensive lineman. You don't know as far as how college guys are going to grade out. So you got to take all that stuff into consideration when approaching free agency. So you get a little anxious, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's not really my job. I did my job already. I played a full season, a healthy season, and it's up to my agent and upper management of different organizations to kind of
figure that out.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, have you had any talks with the Broncos yet?
Nothing like super duper official. Obviously we had our exit meetings. I went and I talked to John Elway, and we just had a cool conversation. We talked about football. We talked about strategy. We talked about a bunch of stuff. Obviously he said he'd love to have me back, and I told him I'd love to be here. I definitely want to be a part of what he's building now. Sure. In Denver, especially with Vic Fangio being the head coach. So, we talked, but it wasn't nothing like, okay, we're definitely going to bring you back. We definitely, it's just like, we liked you as a person. We liked you as a player. We felt like you did, a good enough job to be a Bronco again next year. And, if the money, it's business,
Sure.
So when the business starts and, I got a family and he has a family, and everybody's got to be right when they make those decisions. So
how do you talk to your agents about, or do you talk to your agent about like what's important to you?
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy, man, because in the beginning of my career, I didn't know. I had a different agent. I worked with a different group of people, and I didn't really talk about it. Even when I signed with Denver, it wasn't too much of a, oh, hey, Zach, this is the defensive scheme. These are the coaches. I didn't even know Denver was getting a new head coach when I signed there.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't even, I didn't know. And I was just coming off of surgery, too.
Right.
So, and then you start earlier when, what I'm saying? So it was just so much stuff. And I was actually in Detroit meeting with the Lions when Denver had called, my reps and said, okay, this is the deal. And I actually liked Detroit at the time. They had a new GM. Bob Quinn is the GM now. And they, their style of defense, I felt like it fit me really well. And my agent was like, man, I think this is where we should, what we should do. And I'm like, all right, well, you've been doing this longer than me. So, but now I'm older and I kind of, I know how it goes a little bit. Like I said, it's my second time going through free agency, so I kind of know what to look for and know what I want out of an organization.
Talk about the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, didn't win a ton of football games,
Yeah,
right? Not
all.
as many as you would like.
Right.
And then at the end of the year, Vance Joseph gets fired. Just talk about
Yeah.
the last 2 years, the Vance Joseph era. What happened? What went wrong?
I mean, it was rough, man. It's always rough when you're losing games in a performance-based business. You know what I'm saying? So it was tough. It was tough sometimes going into work and just feeling like crap because you lost 3 or 4 games in a row, but you got to continue to trust the process. And VJ is a great guy, man. He's a great dude. He's very caring. I just feel like it's hard being a first-time head coach for the Denver Broncos.
Right.
It's just and this is no shade towards any other organization in the NFL, but it's different than going to say Tampa Bay and being a head coach.
Right.
Because the expectation level is a little different in Denver. You got all these Super Bowls, all these appearances, always in the playoffs,
Yep.
stuff like that. So it's hard, man. And when you're not successful, it sucks. Honestly.
Does that wear on you personally? Like during the season, like, wow, this is a passionate fan base and everyone's pissed off.
Yeah.
And I'm a part of the group that's losing.
Yeah, I was a part of the worst 2 seasons in Denver Bronco history. So, like, I'm not excited about that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course, of course.
I'm not excited about that. And it was funny, man, because a couple weeks ago, me and one of my friends who doesn't play football, he was asking me, about the free agent stuff, and I was like, man, honestly, I was like, if I don't go back to Denver, I said I don't want to go to a team that just won a Super Bowl, because when you go to a team that just won a Super Bowl and you're not successful, then everybody's looking at you like, oh, it's your fault. Regardless of what you do. You know what I'm saying?
And we were just having this conversation about the Eagles quarterback, that Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
The expectations now win a Super Bowl because Nick Foles just did it.
Exactly.
He's Super Bowl MVP.
Exactly.
Like, those are the shoes that you got to fill.
Yeah, man, and it's rough. It's rough. Like I said, it's always rough when you're not successful in a performance-based business, and that's what the NFL is. So yeah, I mean, it definitely wore on us. I mean, I know me personally, it did. I mean, I've had conversations with guys, and it just sucked, man. I didn't even like going out half the time. Like, I didn't like going to dinner. I didn't like doing any of that stuff.
Right.
I'm like, man,
it's not fun. Losing isn't fun.
It's not fun, man.
And that, I think fans, they don't realize how much it impacts just your weekly, day-to-day life.
Exactly. Your moods. You know what I'm saying? Even if you have, a good game, it's cool for 24 hours. Maybe even 3 days out the week. You got people hitting you up on social media, XYZ. Hey, man, you killed it last week. And
Sure.
All that other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, all right, well, we've lost 5 games in a row.
Just walking in the building,
Yeah,
it's just a different
walking
feeling.
in the building, man.
It's just like the mood in the building overall, and
Yeah,
it's not fun.
It's not fun. It's not fun. And I mean, it's even harder when you got such a talented team. You know what I'm saying? Like, my first 3 years in Indy, we had Andrew Luck, but a lot of those games he was injured.
Right.
And we were still going 8-8 and literally like fighting at the last game. It's us making the playoffs or not. You know what I'm saying? So with a way less talented team, you know what I'm saying? So like once I got here, I'm like, okay, we're gonna do something. And then the result was the result, and I'm just like, man, this can't be what it's like. You know what I'm saying? Like, this can't be what it's like to play on a team full of so many good football players. You know what I'm saying? So it was rough, man. But it's you live and you learn.
Yep.
Zach Kerr joining us live in studio. Do you have time to hang around for one more segment?
Absolutely.
All right. There has been a thought, and we've heard it from players, and we've tried to identify it ourselves. Is it seems as if the culture has slipped a little bit inside that building, and I want to ask you a couple questions in relation to that when we come back. We have a special guest in studio. And it's a fellow Zach, spelled the right way.
With an H.
Z-A-C-H.
Yep.
So,
what are y'all doing? I thought there was only one of those guys in the country. There's more than one with the H.
It's a thing. We are joined by Zach Kerr, live in studio. Just played last 2 seasons for the Broncos. Was with the Colts before that. Played at Delaware.
I did.
And I've mentioned this on the air before. I used to call your college games.
It's a small world.
And for the university
like every month.
For the University at Albany, and Brian Parker was lining up for Albany. You were lining up for Delaware, and you guys actually almost got in a fight one time, right?
We almost got in a fight. Yeah, BP's he's an aggressive guy.
He is.
He got a little too aggressive on the play, and
you were looking out for one of your teamates.
Yeah, looking out for one of my guys.
That's right.
So I had to let him know, like, hey, look, take it easy, because we could take it there.
Zach Kerr live in studio. Let me ask you a question, and I don't want to get uncomfortable or anything like that, but at the same time, I want to keep it real.
Right.
And we have heard time and again from people who are close to the organization, people inside the organization, that for whatever reason there was a slip in culture and accountability from, and then you weren't there in the Super Bowl year, but to have guys like Peyton and DeMarcus there, and then they leave, and there's this void there, and it's a first-time head coach. I just want to ask you about the 2-year window that you were here with the Broncos, and you still may be coming back.
Right.
Did you feel that at all as a player, that, you know what, it seems like there's like a substitute teacher here type of deal?
I wouldn't say a substitute teacher. I would just say that it was definitely not what I was expecting from the outside looking in, playing for a different organization. When I was in Indy, and I'm like, man, the Broncos are over there going crazy. You know what I'm saying? Especially on the defensive side of the ball. Like,
right.
You just remember, I think one year they scored 7 or 8 touchdowns on defense. And it was just like every week you look up and somebody on defense is scoring a touchdown, or, they were getting crazy amount of turnovers. And, when we got here, we still played decent enough defense, but it just wasn't that. And because, like you said, because I wasn't here, I can't compare to, the Super Bowl years and the playoff years, but obviously there was a slip in culture. And I don't know necessarily who's to blame for that, whether it be coaching, players, living in the old times. Because, you got a tendency to do that. You got a tendency to be like, oh, when we won the Super Bowl, we had this and we had that and we did this and we did that. And it's just like, well, this ain't the Super Bowl year anymore. You know what I'm saying? This is a new team. This is 2-3 years removed from the Super Bowl now. And, things are different. You got different coaches. You got different players. And that's just how the game goes. In the NFL, it's a revolving door all the time. So, I think it was just a lot of guys that had won the Super Bowl and a lot of guys who hadn't won the Super Bowl, and the guys who won it expected more from the guys who hadn't.
Was there a divide between that group?
And you know what? It really wasn't. It really wasn't. Believe it or not, I felt like the guys who won the Super Bowl would kind of clash a little bit more. And it wasn't like clash, it's just like, holding them accountable.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, look, man, like, dude, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? You were here when we won the Super Bowl. You know what it takes. Like, so that's kind of what it was. And they would just kind of try to bring us guys that were new to the whole thing with them. But yeah, it was just it was players trying to hold players accountable. And I think that's what you got to do when you have a football team. Players got to take control.
Yeah, no question about it. Talk about Joe Woods. We talked about Vance Joseph, first-time NFL head coach.
Right.
Joe Woods was a first-time defensive coordinator
right.
in the NFL. They had just let Wade Phillips go, one of the all-time greats. And you just didn't see the same.
Right.
It wasn't quite the same. And, we were told it was going to run the same defense and it's the same calls, but it wasn't the same play out on the field. And too many times I looked out this year and I would see 12 men on the field. 12 men on the field. Oh, 10 men on the field. And maybe after a timeout. And I'm like, that's, you want to get the players out there, but that's on the coaches to make sure they're out there and doing the right things. Just talk about Joe Woods and his 2 years as defensive coordinator.
I like Joe Woods, man. Joe Woods was cool. I felt like, he was a deep defensive backs coach before that. So a lot of his game plans were tailored for the defensive backs. And it might not have looked that way when we watched the games, but, the way he called the games, I felt like it was more so he can make sure the defensive backs were in a better position. And I felt like with the players we got, you don't really got to do that. When you got Chris Harris, when you got Roby, when you got those guys, Stu, you could just literally let those guys line up and play, and those guys will do that because that's how good they are. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like sometimes it was a little overcooking the game plan.
Sure.
And I feel like that happens a lot. That happens a lot, across the board, not even just Joe Woods. You look at certain teams week in and week out when they might beat somebody else and they lose to somebody that they shouldn't have lost to. It's like, well, what worked last week? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not change it up. Let's keep, the main thing. And I felt like at times we would just get off track, man. Players included, you know what I'm saying? It's times where, it'd be, even special teams, it'd be, a field goal and somebody won't be on the field. It's like, yo, get out on the. What are you doing? Like
who's to blame for that? Who do you put that on? Do you put it on the player, on the coach?
Me personally, I put it on the player because I'm never not going to be on the field. That's just my mindset. You know what I'm saying? I can't sit up there and be like, okay, well the coach is supposed to do this. It's like, no, you got to be in tune with the game, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, and that's part of your job description. When you playing football, you have to pay attention to the game. If you go out there and you get an MA, that's your fault. That's not on the coach. The coach coached you to do what you were supposed to do the entire week. Now, if a coach makes a bad call, then obviously that's on the coach. But at the end of the day, you got to execute what the coach calls, and if it's not a good call, that's it's not a good call.
Right.
So I mean, you got to put. I'm not the type of guy that likes to put a lot of blame on the coaches.
Was there accountability being held for the players, like for a guy like say, hey, we call in 3-4 nickel or whatever, and that guy's not running out there, and we only have 10 guys on the field, or that somebody was supposed to come off, they didn't come off. I mean, was there accountability from the coaching staff?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was. I mean, you'd hear from it. You hear from the coaches for sure. It wasn't just like a guy wouldn't go on the field and the coach is just like, oh, it's all good, man. He's like, nah, he's getting at him, and that's what you're supposed to do. But
sure.
At the same time, man, like I said, I've never been a player to be like, all right, well, the coaches are doing this, because at the end of the day, the players are on the field and we are the product on the field, and you got to go out there and execute and
do your job.
Yeah, it's that guy, it's that team against this team, and coaching is a big part of the game. But at the end of the day, if you are beating your dude more than he's beating you, then you know what I'm saying? Like
that's it.
That's what it is. That's what football is. So like, it's just hard for me to be like that, man. It's hard for me to be like, oh man, well the coach is this and the coach is that. It's like, look, dude, did you beat your dude? All right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Did you do it? Were you where you're supposed to be?
Hold yourself accountable.
There you go, man. As simple as that. You know what I'm saying?
Zach Kerr joining us live in studio. We saw this year the NFL's My Cause, My Cleats week, and we understand that the cause that you and your mom are representing, sarcoidosis, did I say that right?
You said it right.
Sarcoidosis awareness just received the largest donation made since the NFL launched the program. Is that right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
How did that happen?
Man, I'm not going to lie to you. I just like to think that good things happen to good people.
Well, there you go.
So like, when I seen it, I was doing research myself. I'm like, are we sure this is the largest donation? I'm like, me? My cleats did that, you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, I'm going to my 5th season, but I'm not Von Miller. I'm not Tom Brady. I'm not, you know what I'm saying?
That's reasonable to think.
Yeah, I'm not Patrick Mahomes. You know what I'm saying? I'm not any of those guys. So like, when we got the word of that, I'm like, you sure?
Well, what is that sarcoidosis awareness?
Well, sarcoidosis is it's a inflammatory disease. Pretty much what it does is it attacks all your main organs. So you can get it on your heart, liver, lungs, brain. Whatever, all your main organs, skin, because did you know your skin is your biggest organ? Did you know that?
I did know that.
Of course
nice.
I did.
Yeah. He said, of course I do that. But so my mom has it on her lungs. It ate away a third of her lung.
Oh my.
So she has a lung and a quarter. So like, it's been a struggle, but that's pretty much what it is, man. It's not a good disease at all, and they don't know where it comes from, and they also don't know how to cure it.
Wow, so it needs the awareness.
It needs, yeah.
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah. I had never heard of it.
A lot of people haven't heard of it. You guys familiar with Bernie Mac, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Bernie Mac passed away from.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I believe Nate Dogg as well. Nate Dogg had it as well.
Nate Dogg.
Yep. So those are two people who whenever people ask, I'm like, all right, you should definitely know who those two people are. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, those two guys definitely passed away from it, and yeah, it's a terrible disease, but we're just trying to raise awareness, man. We're just trying to get people's eyes on it so they can kind of know what it is and do their own research and, ask more questions.
Wow. Well, you certainly have done that, because there's a lot of people at work, driving around, at home, that just got a little education on that. And let's come back with some regulators from Nate Dogg when we come back.
Here we go. Mount up.
Zach Kerr, great talking to you.
Thank you.
I'm glad that we got a chance to connect. Learned a little bit here.
Learned a lot.
Yeah.
And best of luck to you in free agency, to you and your family.
I appreciate it.
Anytime you want to hop on with us, we're here for you.
I'm with it. Y'all sure y'all like me that much? I mean,
Oh, you were great. You were great.
The one and the only Zach Kerr. Appreciate him coming by.